Before we start anything here, I want to stress that if you have any interest in this series at all, this video will contain spoilers which I feel could very possibly ruin the experience. Most of the power of the overall narrative comes from a lack of certain details, and that concept is what I'll be discussing here using specifics from the show. So if you want to see this in its full glory, go click off this video, go watch it now. I don't care about the views, what I care about is getting out info and concepts from and about good anime. Over the past few months, I've developed quite a soft spot for more modern to future set, gray zone, introspective anime, and yes, I wish I had a better way to explain that as well. But things like Tokyo Ghoul and Psycho Pass's respective first series, because let's be honest, the first season of each were the best. This led me to a couple others with Shinichiro Watanabe's Terror in Resonance as a standout. It takes a selective dive into the lives of two genius former government guinea pigs who strike out against the world with non-lethal terror attacks. Make no mistake, the scale of their attacks is nothing laughable just because they don't kill, as the lead-off attack draws parallels to devastating real-world incidents. Behind any strike like this lies a reason which the perpetrator believes to be worth the cost of human lives or massive damages. In the case of our protagonists, 9 and 12, they seek the attention of the world to bring to light the transgressions corporations and elected officials wrought on them. This leads them to create a series of attacks, all preceded by some sort of clue, riddle, or information, which has a double effect. Catching the attention of the world as famous terrorists, and leading a former detective, Shibazaki Kenjiro, to pick up the case and put together the subtle clues they laid. This allows for an insurance policy, a second witness to the truth they sought to tell, who avoided the ugly status and disbelievability they would receive. All in all, it's hard to summarize in a succinct manner, and watching it unfold slowly over time was a very engaging viewing experience. It takes the introspective looks of Tokyo Ghoul and Psycho Pass and tells them through a much more moderate Death Note style chess match. As a 2014 release, it grounds itself within some sadly real-world issues. Especially as an American viewer, it explores mass attacks, officials acting outside of their own law, as well as corrupt governments and corporations, all with a conflict rooted in origin to xenophobia. Again, I said sadly real-world issues, and as someone watching the rise of all these situations, it strikes a lot harder than it should. I clearly think highly of the show, and after reading some of the other reviews and discussions, it sits as a solid 7 out of 10 on my list. The clearest reason for this that I found myself taking note after note of, yes I take actual notes on series, it's actually extremely overboard and I end up with a fucking report at the end, was the lack of a known motivation or reason for the attacks. Instead of a twist and reveal or a clear onset goal, a slow drip of information was all that we got. From the introductory scene, we're left to assume in an almost entirely speechless sequence. We see our focuses stealing something from an industrial setting, leave a series of 3 letters, VON, at the scene, and some smaller details like the reluctance of security to fire on them while they have the stolen object, as well as the worried faces of camera operators. In the second episode, we learn they stole a massive plutonium, leaving the looming threat of nuclear disaster for the remainder of the plot. We learn later it's actually Japan's first in-house atomic bomb, which feeds very heavily into the themes of corruption, with Americans trying to retrieve a nuclear weapon developed by the very country they ravaged with too. Back on track, that's just one of the secrets uncovered. Each individual attack brings another layer of mystery as they're told through riddles, meaning we uncover details over time as Shibazaki fills us in with his theories. Each allows us some theorization and thought of our own as to the greater overall mystery. This is actually one of the more heavily criticized areas, as the riddles focus heavily in specific areas, mostly that being Greek mythology, and they lack the complexity and physical interaction of more specific thrillers like Death Note. However, I didn't put much thought into solving the problems myself as they lay outside my knowledge. Instead, I shifted my focus to why that riddle was used, how it flowed into the bigger picture. Why did they choose the Greek thing? What could Sphinx mean under the surface? Things like that. We catch our first glimpse of 9 and 12's past in 9's flashbacks, which grow in detail and intensity as we see the sequence again each repetition. With the introduction of 5, we also call to question her relationship to the pair, why she seems to care only for 9 and disregard 12. It calls back to their past at the Institute, something that must be central to the motivation but remains shrouded in mystery. 2 of its graduates show signs of headaches and weak health, and the one who doesn't remarks on his little time left. Not to mention we don't even know 12's real name until episode 7. Around episode 8, Shibazaki draws connections between the pair's past and the plan they were part of, indirectly giving us more information about their origin and hints at motivation. And he uncovers the full details of the Athena plan, the plan that they were part of as children, as the story comes to a climax, and even then, we're still unclear of the true intentions of our protagonists. We know they don't want to kill anyone. We know they want their riddles to be solved. We know they had their childhood stolen. This and more. All of these clues as to what they may want, but no hard evidence. As more questions are revealed, more enter play as well, and the slow crawl to the final reveal of their goal, each detail adding fuel to a fire that we can't see. And then as everything is falling apart around them, they detonate a nuke in the atmosphere, take the whole country back to the Stone Age, and catch the unwavering attention of the entire world, which was their true goal all along. Personally, I thought the lack of a clear motivation until the very end was the most compelling part of the story. We do learn much about their plan over the course of the series. They stole plutonium, egged the police on to find their bombs, which they don't actually want to kill anyone, and targeted specific locations to draw some sort of connection. All this stuff does become quite obvious as the show progresses. But the why is never revealed throughout any of this, and leaves only clues and assumptions. It must be connected to the Institute, but what really is the Institute? The riddles are meant to be solved, so they must be using them as a ploy for something else. But what? And slowly connections begin to appear as 9 and 12 are trying to reveal their past to Shibazaki. From there, the intrigue shifts more to what their past is and why it's something that must be uncovered. But even after this, the plan continues, meaning there must be an even deeper why than simply revealing it to one man. It's these whys which caught my attention. Some say the lack of motivation makes it impossible to care for 9 or 12 or for the overall plot as a whole. I feel it's a reason to care even more. When real-world terror attacks happen, the most important question is why. The intent is to send a message, push for change, or make a cause noteworthy. This isn't to say it's a sane or justifiable way to do so in any means, but 2 boys went to great lengths to blow a bunch of shit up, and personally, I wanted to know why. The point is, sometimes leaving your audience in the dark isn't a bad thing if it's done right. Rather than have a revelation of an ending twist or a clear goal from day one, a gradual drip of information allows for formulation and continued engagement. And that sounded way more like I was just trying to sell you something than it was supposed to. But the end of things really is don't give too much away, but make sure there's enough to focus on a central mystery or mysteries. This leads me to address the major criticism to this type of storytelling. We can't care about someone's actions if we don't know their motivation. I feel this is very surface level stuff that honestly takes a stab at delegitimizing a certain take on storytelling. Rather than identifying them on motivation, we have to identify them by their actions alone. Are 9 and 12 super interesting and engaging characters? No, they're definitely standard to some tropes and fall a bit flat. But we catch some glimpses of personality from 9 and see other sides to 12 emerge as well. Not knowing the reason for their actions makes them more real to me. Wondering why someone acted a certain way or did a specific thing is commonplace in society. And even though the characterization falls a bit more flat, the overall mystery and storytelling of it doesn't lose anything from not having their motivation. What we can really see here is the framework of future and even past successes. Watanabe took an ambitious leap for 11 episodes, and the balance of characterization and plot did end a bit off, but that's not to say it doesn't work. Look at his prior work on the utter classic of Cowboy Bebop. Spike was an enigma for most of the story. We caught only a few glimpses of his past here and there. What was driving him for most of the story? Hell, we don't know for sure until the final episodes. but each episode painted a beautiful picture of a man who was smooth, casual, and unparalleled levels of cool. When his backstory comes up, that all goes out the window to reveal a vicious beast. We see some of the same attempts with 9. He's quiet and intelligent, but can break character when the Institute comes into play. However, this doesn't happen enough, and his personality is much more cold and unlikable than Spike. And the rest of the cast, outside of Shibazaki I suppose, doesn't fare much better as well, especially the stark contrast of 9 and 12 being much more of a trope than the misfit gang of Bebop. But we've seen Watanabe do both sides extremely well. The outstanding characters of Bebop and the compelling motivational mystery of Terror in Resonance. So I don't think you need to clear motivation for a compelling story, and ambitious attempts like those, even if they don't work on all fronts, can only further anime as a whole. It's best described by Watanabe speaking on his idea for Cowboy Bebop. He said, "I wanted to create something that had never been seen. You've seen a lot in the past and find things you like. These days, many people try to create what they've seen. That's not what I wanted to do. I probably included what I've seen and liked, but the overall picture will become something totally new. Create something never seen before was my goal, sort of."